Hmm.
But one of my friends who was a product designer came to me and asked, hey, can we redesign the finding driver animation for Gojek?
Hmm.
And we were trying to reduce cancellations which were happening in that flow.
Okay.
So in the end, when we shipped it, we kind of reduced our cancellations by about 19% for our users,
Wow.
which was something insane for me.
LottieSpaces.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to LottieFiles, the next Lottie Space podcast. And I'm super excited to be here with you guys today. And today's guest, I am extremely excited to get to know and to interview about motion design and his experience and kind of where he's been. So if you could introduce yourself and let us know how many years you've been in the field, your title, your role, and then what company you're currently working with, that would be incredible.
Sure. Thanks, Grace, for having me. So my name is Binoy, and currently I'm heading the motion design team at Gojek. Gojek is a Southeast Asian on-demand service providing app.
Hmm.
It's like a super app, and I've been in design for about 9 years now, starting in 2015. And I started off my career as a product designer,
Okay.
and then while at Gojek, I got the opportunity to explore motion design, which was something that always excited me. So when I got the opportunity, I took it. And for the past, I think, 5 years, I've been in motion design. And yeah, so that's my journey. In the past, I've worked with companies like Freecharge, Snapdeal, Hike
Hmm.
Messenger, and currently at Gojek. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. Amazing. I'm so excited that you're here with us today. And I think I might have forgotten to introduce myself to everyone. So, hi, everyone. I'm Grace Canfield. You should recognize my voice from a few of the past podcast episodes that we've done. So I'm just going to give us a little overview of what our conversation is going to look like. We'll start kind of with the hero's journey, which is what we like to call it at LottieFiles, where we just get to know you, understand kind of like your background, your childhood, and how that shaped your life moving forward, especially in your career as a creative and as an artist and as a designer. And then we'll do a little game where I just ask some fun questions to get to know you better. And then we'll kind of dive into motion, why we need it, is it important, asking all the fun questions and crucial questions of in today's climate. Yeah. So let's start with your childhood. How did your childhood or your background shape your career as a visual storyteller?
Yeah, I think I can remember myself never being able to focus on one thing at a time. So I
Mm.
guess I was always attracted to different things. So I guess even now I'm more of a generalist. So motion is my uh, specialization, but then I
Mm.
still like to explore a lot of things. So even as a child, I was excited about films, about sketching, about music, and I couldn't like even when people used to ask me what I wanted to be, I was always at a loss for words
Yeah.
because I wanted to be everything. And like, so yeah, I guess that was somewhere there in my head because I used to imagine myself doing different roles
Mm.
in life. It
Yeah.
could be like a truck driver or an actor or an animator. But then
Yeah.
I never thought of any of these as career possibilities. So it was
Mm.
just fantasies. And yeah, I guess my family also gave me an opportunity to express myself creatively. So I never felt restricted that way.
Mm.
And I think it was generally encouraged to be. And yeah, of course, my cousins who I grew up with, they were like, they always used to, give me their ears to narrate stories I came up with. Like I had made some fictional character, superhero, and they just, support me and listen to it as if it
Wow.
was something cool. So I
Yeah.
guess all of these things, it's just that I ended up in design because I initially did my graduation in civil engineering,
Okay.
which again, it fits the pattern of me doing different things.
Yes.
But I wanted to be an architect also, but then I
Oh.
ended up in civil engineering because I thought, it's similar fields, and I was very wrong about it. But after civil engineering, then I found out about design. Then I
Mm.
explored. So I'm still exploring. So I don't know what's
Yeah.
next after this. But yeah.
It sounds like as a child too, you had just so many dreams and visions of what life could be for
Yeah.
yourself. And so, did you grow up kind of like telling stories from a young age? Did your family incorporate storytelling where it just kind of became natural? Or was that honestly just how you expressed yourself and saw the world was just through storytelling?
I don't know if I used to share it with a lot of people.
Mhm.
My cousins were my close circle, so
Yeah.
and we were more or less the same age group, so I was more comfortable with them. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I guess most of my storytelling was restricted to my notebooks. Like I used to
Mhm.
have these doodles and sketches on all of my college or school notebooks.
Oh, wow.
And again, my parents also read a lot. I don't read half as much as they do. So I guess, I mean, we had this creative environment, but
Mhm.
I hadn't really found a way to express it. And I used to limit my storytelling to these notebooks mostly.
Yeah. And so when you were a kid and you were telling stories, did that kind of continue all the way through college and even now, like just kind of like always having a notebook around to tell stories? Because I know for myself, whenever I'm like out and about or observing life, I always have a notebook and a pen with me because I never know when I'm going to see something that's super poetic or there's going to be like a story right in front of me or just little things throughout the day. Is that something like a practice that you still have, kind of always ready to um, tell a story wherever you go?
Yeah, so not really. I mean, I have a collection of notebooks with which I
Mhm.
wanted to do this, but the
Yeah.
thing is, I buy these notebooks and I hoard them, but I never get started with them. So
Yes.
I've never finished an entire notebook end to end because the moment I pick up a pen and I think I should do something on this notebook, it becomes a task for me. And
Mm.
then it's just something that I need to, it becomes like a chore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, mostly my storytelling happens when I least expect it. It could
Mm.
be, I mean, I think mostly it happens through conversations with people.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
when we are talking and I don't have an agenda or I'm not like thinking about,
Mhm.
having to share the story with someone, but organically when it comes up in a conversation, and I'm able to fill in gaps with my imagination
Yeah.
or use metaphors to express something, that's where it's mostly flowing organically. And one of my cousins is also a filmmaker, so we used to brainstorm ideas for his films. He used to make up very random stories for his short films, and that used to nurture my imagination as well. So
Yeah.
we'll just
Yeah.
go on for hours sharing his stories with me, and I used to visualize it in my head. And yeah, so it's mostly through conversations for me. Writing or
Mm.
sketching, when I think about it, it becomes something to check off a list.
Right.
So yeah.
Absolutely. That's incredible just to hear all the ways that you've already experienced storytelling and how it just kind of flows. It sounds like a very organic and natural thing for you when you're just
Yeah.
sitting there observing life, talking with people, that stories just kind of flow out of you.
Yeah.
I could spend hours talking about storytelling, but I'm gonna keep moving forward since we're gonna. I want to get to know you better. But what was the defining moment of your career, or a moment that changed the trajectory for you, where you kind of were like, motion design is something I see myself in for at least a good amount of time, or something I want to apply to my life?
Yeah, so as I said, I still don't know how long any task or any career path stays on for me. So I've
Yeah.
still not, I don't usually plan a lot of years ahead.
Yeah.
So right now I'm enjoying this. So, but then what got me hooked to motion was I always had this interest in animations and, drawing flipbook animations.
Yeah.
But while at Gojek, I think it was back in 2019 when we were redesigning the Finding Driver animation. Until then,
Hmm.
I don't know if anyone actually designed it or whether we were using some default animations for the app.
Hmm.
But one of my friends who was a product designer came to me and asked, "Hey, can we redesign the Finding Driver animation for Gojek?"
Hmm.
And we were trying to reduce cancellations which were happening in that flow.
Okay.
So, and that was the first time I was also working on a motion design task, and I had to pick up After Effects. And yeah, I had my colleagues to help me out as well.
Yeah.
But once we put that out, it was interesting because it was something new for me as well. And
Hmm.
we went through a number of iterations. And in the end, when we shipped it, we kind of reduced our cancellations by about 19% for our users,
Wow.
which was something insane for me because
Yeah.
I never knew I just explored it because motion was something cool for me, but knowing
Yeah.
that something that generally people perceive as trivial could
Hmm.
deliver this kind of impact to the business and our users at the same
Hmm.
time was when things changed for me. So
Yeah.
since then, it's become like uh, I realize it's something that you can scale for both the users and the business. You
Hmm.
can deliver meaningful experiences to your users, make their experience of booking a cab every day more
Yeah.
pleasurable, more
Yeah.
joyful.
Yeah.
So that's something that still keeps me going,
Mm.
and I still haven't felt that the joy for me is coming down in motion.
Yeah.
So as long as that, I hope I'll keep going.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And so you said that it was to implement motion actually helped bring down like your lost customers. Is that, did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Amazing. Yeah. I also
So it
loved what
was
you,
like, yeah, it's like if you have to wait for a cab. So Gojek, what
Mhm.
Gojek does is we connect our users to drivers. So
Right.
yeah, you can book a cab or a two-wheeler taxi on demand
Right.
along with food delivery services. So if the waiting period prolongs for longer than a few seconds,
Mhm.
the users can get impatient or they look for other
Yeah.
options. That's where we lose out on the customers.
Okay.
So we want to make it more engaging to them. So we try to do that with motion and some UI changes as
Hmm.
well as some UX writing support.
Yeah.
So I mean, the insights we got was that the users felt that we were communicating more to them,
Hmm.
and they felt seen, as it
Yeah.
was like we were communicating that we were doing something for it, and it
Yeah.
wasn't just a generic looping animation which would play throughout the waiting period.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, so in the end we saw the impact. So users actually stuck to our app for longer,
Mm.
and they didn't feel anxious, or maybe they
Mhm.
felt less anxious waiting for their ride,
Yeah.
which is why the cancellations dropped.
Yeah. And I love what you said about motion, like bringing joy and bringing almost like a sense of like, okay, something's happening. And for me, it's hard, especially with some of like the micro animations. They're just, some of them are so fun to look at and they're so bright and colorful. And there's something happening where you just feel like, okay, I'm
Yeah,
happy to be on this page or be on this site for longer because it's like a joyful experience. And that's something I'm sure that you've heard at LottieFiles since you've been with our a part of like our company for a while. But we always like to say that language is the motion of joy, and
yeah,
and that right there, I think that story just encapsulates it so well.
yeah.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a few rapid fire questions.
Okay,
And just so we can kind of get to know you on like a quick, they're easy questions, but just like on a quick back and forth. So if you're ready, I'm going to dive into it.
all right, let's go.
All right. What time of day are you most productive?
Very inconsistent and unpredictable. Sometimes it's the day, sometimes it's afternoon or night. Whenever I get the burst of inspiration, I go.
I
It's
love
very
that.
hard for me to follow a routine.
Yes. Okay. What is your favorite color palette to work with?
Color palette. I like the palette of Ghibli movies.
Okay.
So very like toned down
Yeah.
colors and yeah, that kind of aesthetic appeal. So that's something I
Amazing.
really like.
Perfect. What's your favorite genre of music?
Again, mostly pop and a little bit of Carnatic progressive rock. It's a
Nice.
very specific genre, yeah, but yeah,
Yeah. Amazing. And how many instruments do you play?
two maybe. I
Okay.
yeah,
Can you tell us what those two instruments are?
yeah. I play the flute and a little bit of guitar. I'm trying to pick it up more like four chords guitarist. So yeah.
Amazing. What are your top three favorite movies?
All right. Um, Most of the movies that are coming to my head are from my native language, which is Malayalam.
Yeah,
So
I love
I
that.
think, yeah, a lot of my storytelling as well as childhood influence come from Malayalam movies.
Okay.
So I'd say Nayat is one movie.
Hmm.
Then what's another one? Rorschach. That's again a Malayalam movie.
Okay.
And let's just think of something outside Malayalam. Interstellar.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Those are all. I'm curious to watch the first two, especially if they've like been a source of inspiration for you. Sounds
you
amazing.
should.
I definitely
I'll
will.
send you the links.
I love exploring new genres and new movies from
Oh, you
different
should.
cultures. And then what's your favorite time of day to create?
As I said, whenever inspiration strikes,
Hmm.
it doesn't. I usually struggle if I force myself to work at a
Yep.
time and if I block a
Exactly.
time on the calendar. So it's mostly organic.
Yep. I love that. What's your go-to weekend activity?
Practicing the flute, catching up with friends, mostly. Yeah.
Lovely. Sunrise hike or evening stroll?
Depends on the mood.
I also feel that answer. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah.
What was the best advice you've ever been given career-wise?
Keep at it.
Hmm,
So
amazing.
that was something my manager told me. He used to be the head of Gojek design.
Okay.
His name is Abhinit. So again, uh, elaborating a bit on that. So when I moved to motion, initially After Effects was too overwhelming for me, and I wanted to drop out of it and go back to product design.
Oh, wow.
But
Yeah.
he kept telling me, "You got to keep at it,"
Hmm.
and so that kind of motivated me. And now I'm reaping the benefits of that, and I
Yeah.
try to apply it whenever I feel stuck or
Hmm.
uh, lost.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing how just like a simple sentence from someone that you respect can really
Yeah,
change the course of your life? Like, just keep at it. I mean, that's a pretty simple sentence, but when it's from someone that you respect and like their design and their motion and their work ethic, it can change a lot. So I love that.
absolutely.
And then last question is what keeps you excited in life and in your career? And I think we kind of touched on that a little bit, but if you could elaborate.
Yeah. What keeps me excited,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
It's not knowing what comes next.
Hmm.
So there's always something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Okay, those are perfect questions. Loved those. I think it's interesting that, and I can relate to this, especially when you're like, depends on the mood for a sunset hike or sunrise, and then just whenever inspiration strikes. I appreciate
Mhm.
kind of just the kind of like going with like the ebb and flow of life and kind of feeling the
Exactly.
feelings that come and not making things too rigid. Because I assume for you, if you have like almost too much structure, does your kind of like creative flow kind of get lost in that?
Yeah, it feels like a job then. And what's the
Mm,
point? I mean, you lose the joy of creating after
right,
that. Also,
right.
like embracing all emotions that life can offer to you, right?
Yeah.
So if you get too obsessed about following the sunset hike, then
Hmm.
whenever you don't get it, you start feeling
Yep.
unhappy about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's all part and parcel of life. So I
Yeah.
try to, yeah, enjoy whatever I can.
Yeah. That's so important, especially for creatives on a daily
Yeah.
basis, just to realize like you can go with the ebb and flow of life. Let inspiration hit you when it hits you and don't always put the pressure of like, okay, 8 a.m. I have to like have this structure, and then 7 p.m. I have to make sure that I've done this by this time, which obviously that comes with jobs and there are deadlines, but as much as we can to create and cultivate that nature of creativity and inspiration and just kind of letting life happens as it happens
And
is
I also
amazing.
feel most organizations which have a healthy design culture
Hmm.
do let their designers have this sort of flexible or
Yes.
unstructured routine.
Yeah.
Because another one of my managers, whom I look up to, used to say that
Hmm.
routine is the killer of creativity, something like that.
Mm. That's
So
really
he also
good.
used to keep things very flexible and
Yeah.
fluid. So you could come at any time and leave at any time as long as you get the job done. Because
Right.
that's how, I mean, if you're working with creative people, you don't want to restrict them and give them too much of routine. Let them
Yes.
work in whatever way
Yeah.
works for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
Yeah.
also with yeah, I think I lost that thought, but yeah,
No, that was perfect. That was amazing. All right, let's talk about motion a little bit. Very
sure.
LottieFiles, we're very passionate about motion. We love it. So let's dive into that. When and how did you start implementing motion into your projects?
Um, at a company, it was while I was at Gojek, and as I
Okay.
said, it started in 2019. We
Okay.
started off exploring and
Hmm.
integrating motion design into our design system components, and since then we took up custom flows wherever we could use motion to improve or enhance the experience.
Hmm.
That's yeah. So it started in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, in my projects. Yeah.
Nice. And then what was the process of transitioning from kind of the old way of collaborating to the new motion journey?
You mean from product design to motion
Hmm.
design?
Yes.
So this was motion kind of gave me a perspective of the other side.
Okay.
So as a product designer, I would have had to collaborate with graphic designers and UI
Mhm.
designers and all of
Right.
those, craft designers.
Mhm.
But coming to motion design, I was collaborating with product designers.
Hmm.
So it benefited me in the way that I was able to see where they were coming from when we have limitations on, tech constraints or
Mhm.
dev bandwidth issues, or we have to prioritize something because something else is more critical for business.
Mm.
So it forced me to think from a business perspective as well. But as a
Yeah.
designer, it was also my responsibility to speak for the user.
Hmm.
So motion, having worked on both sides, sort of helped me. So that transition was mostly the difficult part was picking up the software, because
Yeah.
I think as a storyteller, I think everybody is a storyteller. So it's
Mhm.
just that people don't always have access to the tools, or it just
Yes.
seems inaccessible to them.
Yes.
So I was lucky enough to have a supportive team and
Mm.
access to tools and mentors who helped me. So it wasn't too hard except for picking up the software. And After Effects was the software that I started with. And anybody
Yeah.
who's tried to learn After Effects knows that it
Yes.
can get overwhelming initially.
Very much
Right.
so, yes. I have spent a little time because I'm not, a graphic designer, but I am a creative. And so I do like have like those just bursts of inspiration. And I spent a little time in After Effects and I was like, oh, this is very challenging. My props to everyone who is in this and learning it. And I've learned a lot from my own team at LottieFiles. And so it's a lot of fun to see the
That's great.
stories that they make from a difficult tool at points. And would you say that motion is a crucial element for companies to keep engagement with their customers, especially in kind of today's world?
Yeah, I think I'd say it's crucial, but probably not the most critical, especially
Mhm.
for startups. I think
Mhm.
it's more like fulfilling the Maslow's pyramid, right? You've got to make
Mhm.
your app reliable and functional first before. So motion is still perceived as something for delight, but I'd say
Mhm.
it's much more than that. It brings character and personality to your brand for your
Mhm.
product.
Yeah.
And like with so many examples that I've seen at Gojek, it definitely impacts the user journey as well as business
Mhm.
metrics. So probably not the most critical, because you can still run your app without
Right.
motion, but
Yeah.
having it is definitely like, getting all the spices together and blending it with
Mhm.
more care. So
Yeah.
if your users feel more cared. So if
Mhm.
that matters to you, then yeah,
Yeah.
definitely motion is
Yeah.
crucial.
Yeah, I like what you said about users feeling more care. I think that's so important. And
Yeah.
also, I do appreciate, since you are a storyteller, I do feel like motion also gives a story to different companies and products. So that way, the
Yeah.
person coming in, they know kind of what the story is, they know what's happening, they know the journey, and then they feel that care, they feel that surprise and delight with like the macro animations, and
Yeah.
which is always a fun experience.
And motion also gives you the opportunity to connect with your user on an emotional
Mm.
level. It's also
Yeah.
something that I keep saying, I mean, talking about whenever I get the chance. It's motion is emotion. It's
Mm.
like motion, as if you're building a product, the product should be um, the mediator between the user and the service.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just like detached and it feels very mechanical using it. There's no
Yeah.
emotion in it. So
Yes.
with motion, you get the opportunity to actually feel something with the user. You're
Mm.
empathizing for that, right? So if you take a candy away from a kid, for them that might be the most intense emotion they've ever felt, the
Yes.
sadness. So I mean, as an adult, if you don't relate to that, the kid would probably not connect with you emotionally, right? You
Yeah.
can't trivialize that. So it depends on what kind of users you're dealing with. If
Mhm.
it's kids, it's like that. But when you understand your users, I mean, I myself book rides on a daily basis. So I'm
Mhm.
also part of the user segment. Maybe the
Right.
demographic, maybe the location and cultural elements are different for me.
Mhm.
But it's like there's a subtle scale or meter that you have to hold when you're
Mm.
celebrating a success with the user. It shouldn't be disproportionate to the action that was taken. Like
Yeah.
every time you make a payment, if you celebrate it with a 10-second animation, the user will just disconnect from that. So you need
Yeah.
to know where to draw the line as well.
Yeah.
And when you communicate a negative news to the user, you don't want them to feel so disheartened, so you kind of let them feel heard and seen.
Hmm.
But you also sort of give some positive reinforcement that this is something that can be fixed with
Yeah.
certain steps. So you don't want to celebrate when the user experiences a loss.
Right.
So it's all about, I think, so that's also going back to what I said about embracing all the emotions.
Yeah.
So as a motion designer also, any as a designer, you
Mhm.
should let yourself feel more things so you can
Mm.
relate to
Yes.
people on different journeys.
Absolutely. I love that's
Yeah.
so good. Yeah, as a designer, let yourself feel all the emotions. That's so important. And as a storyteller, right? Like if we're not feeling emotions and understanding the different avenues and chasms of life, then we won't be able to express and relay that, but also connect with people because it's about care and connect. Um,
Yeah,
Whether you're designing or creating or doing music or playing guitar or making
yeah,
movies, I mean everything. It's expression and it's
everything.
about connecting with your fellow humans, which is beautiful. Oh, I love that so much. Thank you. Okay, so then when did you first hear about LottieFiles? What was your introduction like to LottieFiles?
I think when I joined, when we started the motion design team at Gojek, we did some research because for Gojek also it was something new. And before that, I think we used to use GIF files, which were
Okay.
not very,
Hmm.
so it wouldn't scale to different resolutions
Right.
very well, right? So
Right.
we were looking at vector-based solutions and better file size management. So I think
Hmm.
we did some research, and I think there was one of my co-motion designers at the time, Vinu, was also there. So he had already started working on. I think you might know Vinu because he's also interacted with LottieFiles for something. So
Okay. Yeah.
I think it was him who introduced me to this. I don't exactly remember, but yeah. So we started exploring this, and we realized that Lottie compresses or it gives you vector-based animations,
Hmm.
and you can even have these tags which developers could read and customize things from the front end, like change colors or uh,
Yes.
adjust the loops,
Yeah.
decide how many times each loop
Hmm.
should play and all of that. So then it was an obvious choice because any day this is better than any other alternative we had.
Hmm.
And for sure, we didn't want to give the developers an SVG file and ask them to manually animate it on
Yeah.
front end.
Yeah.
So yeah, it once we came to know about this platform, it was definitely the obvious choice for us.
Nice. Yeah. And can you dive in a little more on kind of how the collaboration process within the Lottie file ecosystem works with your developers? Like, how has that kind of helped the pain points there with fellow developers, designers, project, whoever, like, who all do you have in your collaboration process and in your workflow in the Lottie's files space?
Yeah, so the collaborations are mostly between product designers, motion
Hmm.
designers, graphic designers. We call them creatives as a team,
Okay. Yeah.
and front end engineers.
Hmm.
So, in terms of collaboration, Lottie has made it as simple as handing over an asset which the developers can
Hmm.
just plug and play. So we mostly, because we have the preview on the plugin, we
Hmm.
mostly know
Yep.
what's going to get rendered in the final app. So
Hmm.
it's cut down a lot of back and forth with the devs in terms of implementation, because that was probably the biggest bottleneck, right? Giving them
Yeah.
specs and sitting with them and telling them how to do. And there's always this gap between the implementation and what the designer had envisioned. So even if you give a video, there'll be still some parameters which would render differently. So
Yes.
Lottie
Right.
solved for all of that. It made it simple. It's just a single file now, and yeah, so we saved a lot of developer
Hmm.
bandwidth
Yeah.
in terms of hours and effort. So they dedicate that bandwidth for other critical issues now.
Mm.
And in terms of designers, we also have, you have the preview, so it's easier to share the animation for feedback with other stakeholders. So yeah, I guess yeah, it's made our lives a lot easier.
Yeah. So kind of sped up the process
Yeah,
and
yeah.
help you all stay in communication better, which also speeds up implementation and then gets it to your developers and front end users and so keeps things
And
moving.
yeah, the most important stakeholder are users.
Yeah.
We are able to give better quality animations and micro animations for the users.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's any day better than a GIF.
Hmm. Yeah. And
Yeah,
so if you were to look at like other companies who are trying to implement more motion,
yeah,
and obviously the GIF is a higher quantity, so it's heavier. It's not as lightweight.
yeah.
Do you see Lottie files as like a solution, not only in the lightweight aspect, but also in the collaboration and easy enough tools, and even for like junior designers, junior motion designers? Do you see that kind of helping other companies or other teams improve their workflow?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know why anyone would still be using GIFs instead of Lottie,
Hmm.
because for any effect, I think you can even embed PNGs inside your Lottie.
Right.
So it's always more efficient and recommended to use a Lottie format instead of
Mm.
a GIF. But otherwise, even in terms of smaller teams and companies who want to implement motion, I definitely recommend LottieFiles because um, it's just the workflow regardless of what tool you're using. I mean, I think most companies would still use After Effects, and
Right.
because of
Yeah.
the plugin integration is so seamless that you
Hmm.
can preview, and you also show the issues for each platform. If there
Hmm.
are any, like, if there are any unsupported features in the format,
Hmm.
you can see that before you export the file itself. So you can preview and export and share also. And I think if you're using the LottieFiles app, you can also collaborate in terms of file
Yes.
organization. You could comment directly on the file and compression. So that's
Hmm.
also one of the major use cases for us, optimizing the JSON or exporting as .lottie. So
Yeah.
that also, in the long term, the returns compound. So that's
Yeah.
also one.
Amazing. Yeah, and we are, I mean, obviously, you know this with being with us for so long, your company, but I mean, we always want to encourage designing outside of Lottie files as well. So Adobe After Effects, Figma, wherever teams design, because that's really why we're here. We just want people to use motion and to make the experience and the connection with other people easy and accessible and bring motion to every platform, every team, anyone who's interested in it. I mean, junior designers, junior motion designers, if they're like, okay, I want to try to start my hand at implementing this, telling better stories, invoking
Yeah,
emotion, like you said. I mean, we want to encourage that and make it easy and accessible for people to be
yeah,
able to do that, to see their little. I know I did like because I wanted to try it to see if I could do it, and I just did like a little sun that popped up and then smiled, and I was like, okay, great, like that's cute. It made me happy, and I was like, it's not as good as other actual motion designers could do, but it was a fun little moment of just like that surprise and delight, like you talked about. Even just seeing that motion pop up was a fun experience. But so I
yeah,
appreciate you explaining the Lottie files and how that's implemented into your workflow and how you guys have been using that. So I do have
yeah.
just two more questions for you if you're still good on time.
Yeah, all good.
Amazing. How, and we've kind of touched on this, but how do you cultivate creativity in daily life? And I know that you're kind of more like an ebb and flow, it comes organically, but
Yeah.
are there some ways that if you're feeling kind of in a rut or you're feeling just not inspired by life, are there things that you do to try to like cultivate that?
So for me, it's mostly talking to people.
Hmm.
I'm a very introverted person. So for
Okay.
me, my alone time is very important. So sometimes I just let myself do nothing and sit with it. It's
Yeah.
very uncomfortable, especially when you
Mhm.
have a list of tasks that you're procrastinating on.
Yes.
So I've just accepted that that's just how I function, and
Mhm.
with the guilt of procrastinating, I still accept it.
Yeah.
So, and I just trust myself enough that I'll still get it done before it's too late. So
Hmm.
with that, I mean, it's not like when you're procrastinating on something, you're not, uh, at least you're passively thinking about it.
Right.
Maybe you're just not
Yeah.
aware. It's not at the forefront of your thoughts.
Hmm.
But even when you're talking with someone on a completely unrelated tangent, that might be
Hmm.
when something connects for you.
Yeah.
And that is just like you can't predict it, just like how you can't, calculate and predict your emotions.
Hmm.
It could get triggered with any interaction with anyone. So
Yeah.
for me, being interested in different things also helps. For
Hmm.
example, my music, when I'm playing the flute, there could be something between two notes where you do a transition which
Hmm.
um, inspires me to apply that to an easing between two keyframes.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of correlation, if you see, I mean, between music or films or visual
Yes.
storytelling, art,
Yes.
in for that matter, right? So I just let it flow. I mean, I've practiced not feeling guilty about procrastinating
Hmm.
anymore. So it also helps. Sometimes, yeah, there are deadlines you need to meet, and
Right.
not every project will be as innovative or creative. That's also something you come to terms with. So it's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the next time you figure out that there was something better you could have done, you can go back and improve it always.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I think for creativity, I think I just try not to be too hard on myself. and
Mm,
try not to set any defined path for myself.
mhm.
As I said, I still don't know what I'll be doing 2 years from now.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I never think, whenever someone asks me where do you see yourself 5 years from now, I really don't know. I never would have expected myself to be
Yeah.
on a career path in motion design,
Yeah.
because when I started with civil engineering as my undergrad program.
Yeah.
So it's like that's how life is. So, and I really enjoy that. So even
Mm,
when I talk to people, it's like, so when I also try to uh, talk to more people who come from a completely different perspective or cultural exposure.
yes. Yeah.
So that's not something that comes naturally to me, but
Mm,
whenever I've pushed myself, it has definitely nourished me, and I learn a lot from the people around me.
mm,
And I've just been lucky to be around people who think very differently and who are open to new ideas. So that
mm.
also, like, it's very inspiring to keep yourself open.
Yeah. I love the example that you gave of the flute, and then when you were going from like a note to the next note, and then the transition, and then thinking about the easing and motion. That's
Yeah,
amazing. That's
yeah.
for me, that's so helpful because I enjoy music and I play guitar like you, a little bit of piano, some bass.
Oh,
Just I try to like, a lot like you, just keep myself open to kind of whatever comes and just explore life
mm.
deeply so I can connect with other people deeply and
Yeah,
understand how to live life fully, and connect with my own self and emotions and be okay with what I feel. But I love that with the flute and then translating that into motion. That's even a helpful picture for me to understand easing better. I
yeah.
absolutely love that. So thank you. That
And
was so
the
helpful.
beauty is that you can draw parallels from anything, right? Even
Yeah.
if you're experiencing a difficult emotion, you don't
Mhm.
change to a happy emotion just like that. That
Yeah.
also has a transition. So everything is transitional, and
Mhm.
when something happens, immediately it feels unnatural or very uncomfortable
Yeah.
or traumatic. So
Yeah.
same, you could apply that to animations, keyframes. Like if a
Mhm.
character moves too suddenly, it feels jerky and unnatural. Same with music. When you're singing, there needs to be
Mhm.
that flow. Or with films also, when you're cutting between scenes or
Right. Yeah.
switching genres. So that's I feel that's amazing that all of these have this underlying universal connection,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
is cool.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Okay, so my last question for you would be if you could advise the next generation of designers and creatives, what would your
Hmm.
advice or mantra be for them?
All right. I think try to have fun at what you're
Mm,
doing.
yes.
I know, like, a lot of people don't have the privilege. I
Mm,
consider myself privileged to have this opportunity to have fun at what I'm doing.
mhm.
But if you have the opportunity and the resources, or maybe if that's not an option for you, find a stability of footing first. And once you have that, I think as long as you're having fun and not restricting yourself to the opportunities,
Right.
because I understand it's important to look at things from a career perspective and
Mm,
invest in your future. But again, there needs to be a balance where if it becomes all about that, then you kind of lose the purpose of why
yes.
you got into this.
Yeah.
So it's important to be open to these uncomfortable changes that come
Mm,
up. There's also this quote my dad used to tell me all the time, convert, um, what is that? Uh, he says it in Malayalam, so I'm trying to get the English word for it.
yeah, no, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, consider any negative circumstance as an opportunity.
Hmm.
So that's, if there's a difficult stage in your career, that's
Hmm.
also an opportunity to think of something different. Or it could it's a possibility for growth. That's what I
Yes.
mean.
Yeah.
As long as you can, you know train yourself not to get scared when such
Hmm.
situations happen. I understand it's some things are hard,
Yeah.
but if you can change your perspective to look at it as an opportunity,
Hmm.
then definitely, like, not, you can deal with anything in life. So I think applying that to your career as well, for me at least, being open to different possibilities. Like tomorrow, if I get the confidence and the opportunity to become a musician and make that my living,
Yeah.
it would be a good thing to explore.
Hmm.
And it's not like my design experience would not contribute to that. There's a lot I've learned in this which would make me a different kind of musician.
Hmm.
So, I mean, my product design experience would have biased me, but also given me a different space in motion design.
Hmm.
And so, like, everybody has their space. So, I think there's no
Hmm.
need to feel insecure or threatened by anything. Your journey is different, your journey is unique. So, there's no way two people can be alike, even if you're working in the same team. So, just embrace that. And I think things will be good.
Wow, that was so good. Thank you so much. I think that also I feel like it kind of correlates with you said if someone asks me where I'm going to be in 5 years or where do I see myself in 5 years, you're kind
Yeah.
of like, let's think of a different question to ask. And I think that's so important, especially for creatives, because sometimes
Yeah.
there can be that anxiety of
Yeah.
what is my career going to look like? Like, what do I need to do to get there? Which is important, like, that drive, that determination. But also, if we don't step back and allow ourselves to see these new spaces that could be new opportunities, and allow ourselves to, like you said, be in moments that are uncomfortable, be in emotions and spaces that feel uncomfortable, because there's always time for an adventure or growth or learning, whatever word helps kind of your
Yeah.
body and your mind wrap itself around it and be present in that moment.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of times, even myself, I can try to like disconnect from those, but then I'm
Hmm.
missing so much beauty and goodness and stories that could be told from that space or that circumstance. So appreciate what
Yeah,
you said
and
about
it's
that.
not like I mean that fear or that anxiety in quotes is very
Mhm.
real when you feel it.
Exactly.
I'm
Yes.
not saying you push it under the rug or escape from it. It's more
Right.
like look at it as an opportunity to sit with the discomfort and see what comes out of it. So,
Right.
I mean, because there's something that you've not dealt with or something
Mm.
that's prompting you to grow beyond your current comfort space,
Mm.
which is causing that feeling, right?
Yeah.
So, as long as I mean, it doesn't harm you or,
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's important to feel that as well
Yeah.
and then see how you can use it to grow.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving your time and all your wisdom on just life in general and all the things that you've tried. You've honestly inspired me to keep being
Oh,
creative and do more creative things, um, and I know that all of our listeners will be inspired as well. And thank you for sharing all your motion design experience with us
my pleasure.
and
Thank
all
you
your
for having
knowledge. It's been so fun. Is there anything else I want to like? This is your space and your time to talk. So, is there anything else that you want to say or end with?
Uh, Nothing really. I mean, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I mean, I've always enjoyed talking to folks at LottieFiles. I've spoken to Natu and Harris and
Yes.
Ali, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen the passion you guys have for what you're
Mm.
building. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's always a pleasure to talk to you folks.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, we are very, very passionate about motion and bringing that to everyone and
Yeah,
unlocking the language of joy, like you said. And this has been a really joyful conversation. So thank you so much for that. Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
And I hope you have a lovely rest of your evening. I think it's evening where you are, or it's past evening. But thank you so much for joining us. And to all our fellow Lottie Spaces guests, I will see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Binoy. Have a nice
Thank
night.
you. You too.
Bye.
Bye bye.
LottieSpaces.